I see your demons, I'm telling them it's on sight. I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh. Try to correct me.
All right, we're super excited to have our next guest here, Rafael Iglesias. You're actually going to be at our event as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so, because he's one of the speakers. So imagine if he said no. No, I'm just kidding. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, man. I've had the honor to work with you one-on-one, to work on projects together, and I would always call James and be like, bro, this guy is a different level. Like, running with him is definitely different. I know we'll talk good into your history and what you're really good at, but you basically are a chief strategist for a lot of different companies, correct?
Yeah, we well, right now I'm the chief strategy officer for GMT Capital, but you kind of get to that level with tenure, right? Lessons learned throughout history.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I'm super excited to interview you. For those that don't know you, give us like the 1 to 2 minute rundown. Who is Rafael Iglesias? What are you made of?
Okay. Well, when I was young, I actually grew up as an Army brat, and my stepdad was in Kentucky. Okay, stationed in Kentucky. He was I believe, a staff sergeant in the Army. Started as a mechanic, and so when I was little, I was like, I'm going to join the Army. And he was a mechanic on tanks, the M1 Abrams tanks. Phenomenal vehicle, like really bad. So we were picking him up, my mom and I were picking him up one day, and he was an instructor at the armory school in Fort Knox. And there was these sharp guys just marching, totally different from the Army. And I look over and I ask my stepdad, "Is like, who are those guys?" He goes, "Those are Marines. Like, they're like dangerous." So I was like, wow, like never seen Marines, right? I mean, growing up in the Army, we were in Germany, back to the States, just around soldiers, Army. So from there on, I had a little seed planted in my head. Maybe I want to do that. Fast forward a couple of years, moved to Fort Hood. Graduated out of Fort Hood in Allison High School. And the Army recruiter came up to me and was like, all right, well, I want to do tanks. Army guaranteed the contract. Perfect. That's what I want to do. Abrams tank. And then shortly after, a Marine recruiter called me, and they're not supposed to do that. And he's like, hey, I hear you're going to join the Army, and have you looked into the Marines? I was like, thinking back then, I was like, oh, man, those guys are bad. Marine recruiter comes in, looking sharp, in shape, has his uniform. I was like, wow. At that time, my stepdad was a warrant officer. So he went from enlisted to warrant officer, and there's a staff sergeant. Staff sergeant of Marines comes in and starts giving me the spill. Like, where'd I sign up? He said, first, you got to cancel your contract. Done. Cancel the contract with the Army. The Army recruiter was like livid. And then signed my contract, and they're like, but one thing, the Marines don't guarantee your contract, so you can put tanks, but we don't guarantee it because they don't give you anything. You have to earn everything. I said, okay, so like, I get 3 choices, right? So I put tanks, artillery, and air traffic control because those are combat support services. So it's the needs of the Marine Corps. Fast forward a couple months in boot camp, graduate boot camp, send me to my what they call MCT, Marine Combat Training School. That's where you get your job. So they call me Iglesias, 0811. Artillery, and I'm like just depressed. Like, I really wanted tanks, It's like, and I was skinny. I was a skinny kid. I used to wrestle, 140 pounds, solid muscle. And they're like, oh, because I'm little, and they're like, the Marine Corps is gonna make you stronger, because back in the day, in 1998, we would hump howitzer rounds. They're about 90 pounds apiece, so you're kind of moving this big metal artillery, 198. It's huge. Didn't understand what he's talking about, so went to the fleet, and they just like, this little guy, man, and you're a boot, like you're like the bottom of the bottom, so you have to learn, right? Like, yeah. Before you become a leader, the best thing you do is you serve, right? So you must learn how to follow before you can lead. That's how they trained us. So went through. I was like, man, it's like, this is tough. Like, this is really, really tough. And I decided to become a Marine Corps officer. So I put in for a program. We're just fast forward here. Meritoriously promoted all the way up to staff sergeant. Got the package deal that I wanted. to commission to become a Marine Corps officer, because me being young, looking then, I was like, enlisted guys are pretty badass. The officers have to be like gods, right? Because you got generals, you got like, so that's just the mindset, right, of that you're in. So always trying to achieve more and be better. And I got accepted to the program. So they Marine Corps sent me to Naval Academy Prep School in Rhode Island. Once I finished there, they sent me to Rice at the Naval RC program. So I did a crosstown agreement with U of H, and I commissioned in 2007 as a Marine Corps officer. So at that time, as you guys remember, right, Iraq kicked off. So they just fast forward to schools, sent me to Stinger School as a lad officer, and immediately was in Iraq, 2008. So, but at that whole time, right, being in school was really cool because the Marine Corps sends you to school. So that's when I got to meet my previous business partner and help work in the janitorial industry, help companies in the janitorial sector, like grow. Because I was really learning business, but also applying the theory. So it was really cool because you can do both of those and see them come to life.
That's very cool, man.
That's really it.
That's it?
There's a lot
Wow.
more, but you gave me 2 minutes. You gave me 2 minutes.
No, I mean, when you walk into your office, there's a lot of marine memorabilia and a lot of different things that you did. I know you said you got to apply them into business. I know you got to become a staff sergeant, right?
Right.
Okay, so question for you. Going from the bottom to staff sergeant, what were the top 2, top 3 lessons that you learned, especially in such an intense environment like the Marines?
Well, the first one was taking care of your Marines, right? So it was actually being enlisted and then transitioning to become an officer as a first lieutenant. You always take care of your Marines, always. So just like your employees, the reason why you're successful is because they take care of each other and take care of you, right? So it's a trade-off. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, right, is the Marine Corps is a very institutionalized corporation, really, that breeds culture. And your Marine to your left, to your right, to your front, to your back, it's just such a tight unit cohesion that you take care of each other regardless of what's going on. And that's what really I learned there. And I try to apply it to everything we do in our businesses.
Imagine over 300 cleaning executives, all under one roof, ready to connect, collaborate, and build a community. Join your hosts, James Harper and Angel Sandoval, 11 keynote speakers and 8 expert panelists sharing the blueprint to scale your life and business. Head over to event.cleaningprofits.com for all the details. For being listeners, use code CEO30 for a 30% discount. See you there.
Talk to me about some of those applications that can be translated from the Marines to business, because sometimes those worlds can feel so far apart, right? You got the businessman and then you got the soldier, right? And then you're not the first person I've heard say this, and there's a lot of people online that have served that have been like, no, there's direct application to business. What would be some of those rules or principles?
I think one of the biggest ones, right, that really exist is the ability to make decisions under pressure. Right, so you really, if you think about it, how high is the pressure when you're getting shot at? How high is the pressure when you have to make decisions in a combat zone, right? And then you take that application in the business world and say, well, yeah, maybe I might lose my business, but I'm not going to lose my life. So, that ability to think under pressure and just step back and really think clearly on your decision and your planning really is like given me a lot of strength in what we do.
What are some of those frameworks to think clearly when under pressure? Because I'm pretty sure, like in the Marines, you make a decision as you're getting shot. Either people die or people live. And that's simple. Mission complete, not complete. Like, I don't know if you can kind of, it's very like life or death situations, right? Versus business. But how can someone think if they're under pressure? How can they zone back in and make the best decision?
Yeah, I think the recommendation on that would be, right, so every really it's a problem that you're solving, whether it's in a combat zone and everything's fluid, everything's always changing. So the mindset is you have to frame the problem first, right? Don't try to react quickly because that decision you make could be detrimental, especially if you're combat zone in a business, right? It could be financially detrimental. So just take a step back and frame the problem that's at hand. So that's short run, right? Trying to solve those problems and then think through it, right? Apply some logic, apply some concepts that you're accustomed to. Nobody's perfect, but you can always lessen the impact of what you're trying to achieve if you just frame the problem out and think through it.
When you say frame the problem out, do you mean just literally just isolate it, put it in a box and go, okay, this is the actual problem?
Yes. So, right, everything in business or whatever you do, it's not flat. It's very 3-4 dimension. So if you can just isolate what you're trying to achieve, if you have a problem presented to you, right, try to think of everything to solve that problem and how it will impact the next decision and next step. So that's when you start getting into strategy, right? Like, I can solve this problem right now, but how is that going to impact my logistics? How is that going to impact my cash flow, right? And then you want to take the happy of both of those to reduce that risk. And that's how you frame it out.
So you just said a key word there. How does that impact the greater strategy? And you just talked about your military experience and your upbringing there, but then in the business world, you are the strategist. I remember the first time Angel had met you, he called me that evening and he's like, dude, I just met this Rafael guy, and his strategic brain was incredible. So how did you go from basically being soldier to strategist?
That comes, I think, so the Marine Corps was really, really big in planning. All the way down from the lowest team member to generals, right? Planning is essential to everything we do. Even having a short-term plan, at least it's a plan, right? Mm-hmm. So you got time constraints that you have to deal with. If you know far out, you'll have a better plan because time is on your side. If you have maybe a day, time is against you, so you still need to plan it out. Don't just do something without planning it out. So that's really where it started. And the Marine Corps has warfighting doctrine that teach planning. And that doctrine really translates to the civilian sector. And if you apply it, I mean, it's just, they're different. They're basically different applications, but the basis for those are exact same.
And so one thing I appreciate about you is that you do plan everything in advance and you've thought about the loop, what's going to happen, what if this happens. You build out different scenarios, but you have a plan, right? If somebody sucks at planning, though, if somebody's listening to this and, maybe they have a $10 million company and they're like, dude, I've never planned. I just kind of been just going. What are some things they can start doing now, or some quick advice on how they can get into more of a planning mindset?
Well, I think understanding, right, where let me give you an example. I was a CFO for a printing company, right? And the printing company, the majority of its business was nonprofit organizations in the arts. So you guys recall COVID happened, and I'm thinking okay, this is going to get really serious, 2020. I didn't just say, okay, let's just stop, let's just shut everything down. I mean, we're going to go under. No. Started getting involved because right now in our lifespan, we have access to information. So I started getting involved in what they call a CFO Leadership Council and integrating myself prior to actually COVID hitting the U.S. And I was immediately, so I had the government background, and I know the government was going to be releasing some sort of support. So the moment I plugged myself in with that leadership council group for CFOs, we started monitoring, right, all the programs that are getting ready to come out. So we can put our company first in line to start receiving those benefits and immediately applying for, PPP funding, EIDL, all those programs that existed, because I already knew that they're going to cut, our customers at that time are going to cut services, right? They can't host events. So if 60% of your revenue is made up from that customer base, then you better start thinking on how you're going to plug that gap when it does come. So we started, and then I think you guys probably are aware, people started using the word pivot, right? Pivot started becoming this thing. So we pivot. We moved into more digital online orders, right, where we can still manufacture. But that's what I mean by planning, right? So it's you taking those things and kind of forward thinking 6 months out where you're going to be and start planning to plug those deficiencies that will come up.
At what point did you notice that COVID was going to affect the business, and then when did COVID hit the U.S.?
Yeah, so I think you guys heard on the news, right? It's like towards 2019. And
Yeah.
I was like, nah, it's not going to come here. You know, it's just kind of being a Marine, like being very cocky, like it's not going to hit us. We're the U.S. And then lo and behold, it hit us, right? And I was like, wow. But I didn't just let that be my ultimate decision. I started thinking how we can reduce that impact, because you're going to be impacted no matter what.
Yeah.
But how can you reduce it so you can still survive?
Yeah.
I think there's one thing when it comes to strategy and planning. I've seen a lot of great plans and strategies, and then I've seen poor execution of those plans and strategies. Or I've even been a part of companies that have made a strategy and a lot of time went into it, but no execution actually happened. So like I'm more of a visionary type. So I actually like the long-term vision and strategy around that. But then I like me personally get tied up on execution. Someone listening right now, or just based upon your experience, how do you translate that strategy into an execution plan and make sure actionable things actually start getting done?
Yeah, good question. Because you can have the most perfect plan, but without the right team and culture driving that plan, it's not gonna work out in your favor. But again, one thing they taught us in the Marine Corps, the last step to your plan is supervision, right? So you can set your plan in motion, have your team execute it, but you got to have those metrics to be able to analyze and supervise. You don't have to directly supervise, be on top of everybody, but monitor your plan through supervision, through delegation down to your team members, to your managers. I mean, that's why they exist. And that if somebody says, well, my plan was 100% perfect and it got executed 100% perfect, I mean, never happens.
Yeah.
Time's constantly changing, right? My plan was developed 6 months ago, and now we're 6 months ahead. That things that arose, right? So it has to be flexible and fluid to where your team can delegate and execute that plan without saying, oh, I'm only allowed to do this. No. Give them the responsibility and the initiative that they can take without overbearing them.
But so in that moment of supervision, what are your thoughts on micromanagement? Or what style of management should you have to execute a strategic approach to something?
So in all plans, right, there's different layers, right, different levels. It's just knowing your employees and your culture, right? If you know you have, very, very low performers, then you're going to have a tendency to micromanage, and it's inevitable. Either change your culture, change the way your employees are, right? You can rotate them out, or just understand that you're going to have to micromanage to make your plan come to life. So I think micromanaging exists, but that's a leadership trait, right? That depends. If I have subordinates under me that are working with me and I have to constantly micromanage them, then I have to look in the mirror and it's my problem, not their problem. I haven't passed that over to them to not micromanage them.
Yeah, or you hired the wrong people, like you said, right? It's a leader. Micromanagement is a leadership problem. It's a good, I never thought about it like that.
I think you just said something really important that I don't want to go over. You said it's my problem, not their problem. I'm assuming that probably some of that comes from just the extreme ownership you got being a Marine. I hear a lot, especially in the cleaning industry, I just have bad employees, right? I just have bad clients, or it's a bad market. There's a lot of blame that happens, and I think often a lot of leaders don't look at themselves first. And if you're not looking at yourself first, I wouldn't probably even consider yourself a leader. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just share your thoughts with your background and the companies you're involved with on extreme ownership and how important and critical that is.
What do you mean by extreme ownership?
I don't know, just ownership, self-responsibility. I think a lot of people don't look in the mirror first, and I think that's a detriment, but that could be a personal belief. I'm just curious to your thoughts.
Well, I think, so first of all, right, business owners, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, I think, is if you have the strength to actually be an entrepreneur, and really anybody can say I want to be an entrepreneur. But if you really go through that ring of fire, right, to truly be an entrepreneur, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot out of you, because if you accept responsibility, right, if you're willing to hire families to work for you, then it's your responsibility to take care of them, because they're trading their time to ensure your success. So being an entrepreneur, some people get into that, well, I'm going to start my cleaning business, right? When you start, it's just you. But as you progress and you grow and you're doing the right thing, you have more people working for you. So it doesn't matter what business you're doing. If you're the owner and you are a true entrepreneur, you'll embrace that, because now you're technically serving also your employees. Your customers, right, are a function of why you exist, but your employees are what actually making that happen for you to support your customers, because without the customers, you have no business. And I say it's really difficult, because we've gone through, my wife and I, Lorena, have gone through a lot of businesses that we've helped start, and you got a lot of failures. If the only way you're really going to learn, so you got some education kind of backing your theory and concepts, but then you also have the reality. And whatever industry you're in, so we've been in the logistics business, warehousing with my father, Laredo, Texas, helping companies, right? So we helped originally when I think Amazon was trying to get into Mexico. My dad's connections helped them establish their routes there with a lot of our partners in Mexico. So you start getting experience as you progress, and you really embrace the entrepreneur spirit, right? So it's never easy. It sounds good, but it's really difficult. And I have conversations with people, and I tell them, it's like, look, the Marine Corps was hard. My stepdad was right. It's freaking hard. But go be an entrepreneur, and
Wow.
and now have no money coming in from nobody else. You have to earn that money.
Yeah.
So now it's a reality check, because you start scaling and adding families, and they got kids, right, that are basically counting on you.
Yeah.
So there's different layers. I mean, we've gone through so many different businesses that we've helped, and now that time has allowed me to take those lessons learned and have real applications of theories that I learned both, with my MBA and finance and economics I love economics. I love data. I'm an economist by trade. Econometrics is because I like to really see it and have real valuable data that's going to help guide me, because we all don't know really what we're doing, right? We don't.
Yeah.
But if I research and apply that, okay, I have a high probability that this will be successful. That's why you model things.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, what's up, guys? Today's episode is brought to you by Cinch. If you're ready to take your commercial cleaning business to the next level, we have you covered. Maybe you're struggling with how to bid, how to create professional-looking proposals, or just how to ensure your customers' accounts are actually being cleaned at night. Introducing Cinch Janitorial Software. Cinch is a simple, user-friendly software that eliminates these types of struggles that you probably know all too well. Cinch simplifies your entire process and will supercharge your success, because they remove paperwork headaches while creating a scalable, efficient, and profitable cleaning business. Get your free demo of Cinch at cleancinch.com. They're here to turn your business into a success story. That's cleancinch, CINCH.com. It's simple, it's Cinch.
And I think you said something like probability, right? And seeing the data. So you always say a quote, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's chance favors the prepared mind. Is that it?
yeah, so that's it's an old quote, but I actually picked that one up from it was a general in the Marine Corps. I believe his name was William Muller, Major General. But the way that was kind of taught to us, right, was constantly learn. You have 5,000 years that people have documented their situations, right? Books. So history has a tendency to repeat itself, right? So if you know more, you're never going to learn everything, but if you're constantly reading and educating yourself, right? Meaning yourself, it doesn't mean I have to go to school, right? We have access to information now, internet, and you just read and you learn, right? Every time you pick something up and you read and learn about it, you're adding that tool inside, right? So I learn a new skill, or I learn that this happened during this period, put that little tool in my tool chest. The more tools you have, when those situations present themselves, you'll know, even though you haven't actually did it, you know what history has actually shown you. So,
So a lot of people don't know how to study or don't know how to research. I've heard a lot of people, research history, prepare yourself. What are some pointers you would give them? Because you obviously are very well prepared for the next 5-10 moves,
Yeah, I don't look at research that way. I look at research, right, like first, just constantly intrigued to, I guess you would say, curiosity, right? I'm just curious, right? We started a mechanic business back then, way back. And I was like, oh man, this is a really cool concept, right? Mobile mechanics. I had no idea. My stepdad was a mechanic for tanks, but I didn't work on cars. So we started hiring people, right? But I was just curious, right? We hired master mechanics, and I would rely on them because they're masters, right? Master mechanics, and serving our customers. And then my wife and I, started getting complaints. A lot of complaints, like, what's going on here? I mean, we have the best of the best mechanics working for us, but there's issues like the repairs weren't done right. So my curiosity, right? And then that's what I mean by I don't look at it as research. It's just my curiosity went if this guy can do it, I can do it. So I went and picked up the book, started the ASC program just on my own, reading, learning, and the answers are there. So those are tools I added to my toolbox. And then I technically am a master mechanic now because I can completely fix the vehicle myself.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's part of the warrior mindset, right? The winning spirit. Winning breeds more winning. If you're accustomed to just losing, you're never going to want to. So it's being competitive and always being curious to learn more. So, but if you want to really talk about research, right, that's when you start framing your problem.
Yeah.
And then start saying, okay, this is my problem at hand. How can I go and apply, right? Like what out there exists, gather data, frame that data, and model it and give yourself different situations. So there's two aspects, right? So that's you have to have that drive internally to be able to do that.
I love that actually. How you take a curious approach, more intrigue, and then apply that to real research to kind of back the intrigue. You keep and then I also love how you said there's 5,000 years of business history to learn from. So I'm a big history guy, and when I do my research, it starts with intrigue, and then when I'm looking at data, I love sales. I researched what's the first sales industry in the United States, and the first one was literally selling Bibles on the battlefield during the Civil War. It was the first.
Actually, didn't. That's
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So then that
imagine chilling in the Civil War and be like, "Hey, brother,"
and then that went to gun sales, and then that would so just yeah, you had to buy a Bible back in the day. But with that being said, man, what are some of those trends that you've studied over the years in business that are maybe either the test of time or that can be applicable or transcribed? I'm just curious, and you said you're an economist at heart. Talk to us at that high level of, hey, this has happened before, just give me your thoughts there.
So, okay, let's talk about something that we can really connect right
cool.
on.
Yeah.
So COVID, right? I don't like referring to COVID because it's a bad time in our lifespan.
Yeah.
But what's something similar that existed almost 100 years before that? The Spanish flu, right?
Yep.
And then you start thinking okay, what company, right? These are just questions you kind of go through in your head. What company has been around and lived through that? Coca-Cola. 1880 something, I think they started 1886, right? So if they can do it and they're still here, how did they come through that? Guess what their investment was? Marketing, right? So what happened in that era, in that sector? Think about it. Spanish flu wiped, I think, 500,000 people, right? U.S. So those are the people buying your Cokes, right? And then what happened shortly after that? That was 1918.
World War One,
Well,
or
remember the Great Depression?
the Great Depression.
People were broke, right? So what did Coca-Cola do? They invested in marketing, and instead of selling big 12-ounce cans or big 12 ounces, they sold smaller bottles, right? To keep, so strategically, what does that do? Say, okay, it keeps my sales up, but what else does it do? It actually keeps your brand alive,
Yeah.
right? Consumption's still happening, even though it's smaller and more affordable. So that's how you apply strategy, right? You can't just say, I'm just going to do this because of this. That impact and understanding, right? And the answers are there. Somebody's already solved it. It might not be exact, but the application of that exists. You can deploy those same concepts. Doesn't matter what business you are. Those are the fundamentals.
Well, and it sounds like, and there's a lot of pivoting in there, going back to that word, right? So there was obviously a plan, and then the Spanish flu happens, and hey, Great Depression, we're going to downsize our bottles and keep our brand alive. So I wonder how many people listening right now, like, hopefully we don't have to go through another pandemic for you to pivot. But, like, the marketplace changes all the time, man. And then I want to ask one follow-up question to that. You talked about the warrior mindset. If you go on YouTube right now and Google warrior mindset, you're going to see all these bullshit motivational videos and all of this. To someone like you, and I love the winning's contagious line you said. What's the warrior mindset mean, and then how can that be applicable to someone listening right now?
So the warrior mindset is all-encompassing, right? It isn't just, let me go to battle and win this battle, right? It's all-encompassing. You have to have certain standards and internal standards that you have to live by, right? You can't just say, one day I'm going to be hardcore and do this, and then the next day I quit. You never quit. You give it your all. Even if times are tough, you see it through, right? For example, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And you do it to your best of your ability. Don't just say, I'm going to do this, and then forget about it, right? I mean, if I'm telling you I'm going to do something for you because you need my help, I'm going to follow it through. I'm not just going to let it go. So the warrior mindset is all-encompassing. It's a culture. It's a culture of who you are. And if you look back, right, I mean, I use the term to call out people warriors. People that know me, even in the Marine Corps, I refer to my Marines as warriors, even employees, right? Some of the janitors I work with, they're warriors. They're all warriors because you want that culture, that warrior culture. And it is a mindset. It isn't just, in my office, I have the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know if you guys remember the Ultimate Warrior figure. Because, when I was a little kid, I loved that guy, right? But it's a mindset and a culture.
Yeah. No, and I think some people call themselves warriors. Like, I know, for example, I did until you work next to someone like you. You're like, oh, shoot, okay. But that's a good thing. That makes you want to keep up with them. I'm gonna circle back because we kind of went from, like, history, economics, and back into mindset. I'm going to take us back to the history part, if that's okay. Because I do want to hear from you. In these times, like right now, I know someone like you has already thought out what's coming, maybe in real estate, maybe in investments, maybe buying in business in general. Based on everything you're seeing in the world right now, what do you think is coming that maybe some people should prepare for?
So, right now we're moving into a generation, right? So decentralizing of money, banks, right? Crypto, that part is there. And we'll touch a little bit on that on a great book that I read that kind of follows the history of money, when money was created. But then you also have automation, AI. Because we have access to information the way we do now, technology is exponentiating growth. So it's not this low curve. It's actually exponentiating up so fast, right? NVIDIA, guys hear it all over, right?
Yep.
Number one biggest company right now, $3 trillion worth. Surpass Apple and Microsoft. What do they do? Design chips, right?
Mm-hmm.
In artificial intelligence, that's where everything's going. Tesla with the robots. I mean, if your listeners right now, right? So if your listeners are in the janitorial industry, they need to really start looking at automation. Use technology to your advantage because it's coming and it's coming very fast. one thing that I've been following really close is those Tesla robots, right? You know, recommendations will come in the future how we can replace labor with those robots, right? That's coming. So you need to start really thinking that fourth dimension in your business to start seeing where the future is at. And guess who's going to be primed for that? Our kids. Our kids are already accustomed to playing with technology.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk and speculation that, oh, well, AI is going to take our job. It's like, no, AI is not going to take your job. Why don't you learn it so you can show and continue forward, right? Because if you look at history, right, time progresses. And if you don't adapt and overcome, don't apply that warrior mindset, you're going to be left behind.
Hey, are you ready to challenge yourself? Mark your calendars for the event of the year, the Cleaning Profits Takeover Edition, happening in Denver, Colorado from September 24 to 26. Head over to event.cleaningprofits.com for all the details. For being listeners, use code CEO30 for a 30% discount. See you there.
Is there another part in history that reminds you of what we're going through right now? Especially with like, would it be where the internet came, or
That's one. That's a good one.
I would say the Industrial Revolution, probably, right? I mean, that was when the Industrial Revolution came about and all of a sudden cars were being produced. You got to think, like, people were doing, like, wagons, horses, like, ranch. Everything changed in that moment, and then travel changed. But that's what I would compare it to.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? So have you guys ever watched the show, like Peaky Blinders?
No.
Right.
I haven't. They say it's a great show, but I've never watched it.
So it's
Like,
cool because
the audience said they loved it. So
yeah, it's really cool because there's like it's England, right? And they still have horse and carriage, and then like the upper class has one car, and it's like barely putting like across, right? And you have to keep putting oil and what you're talking about, right? That the invention of the car, right? And people are looking like they're still on horses, right? The internet. I mean, that was our generation, right? Kind of grew through that.
Yeah.
Dial-up, AOL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, like this is when we were kids. Then the cell phone. I mean, I never had a cell phone.
Yeah.
I think, so it's that progression. But if you look at that lifespan, like look at our lifespan, right? How much technology has advanced just our era.
yeah.
If you go further back, I mean, we're the youngest country that exists.
Yeah.
Right? But look how powerful we are because we embrace technology.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever lose our superpower?
I don't think so. I mean, again, that's maybe there's a great book called The Ugly American. I don't know if you guys ever read it, but
No, but I'm going
but
to, man.
it's that's our ego, right? That's who we are, but that's what keeps pushing that drive to win. So my answer, no.
We got in a big debate on this show 2 days ago about the American dream, and this is like a theme that keeps coming up, and it was a good debate. And I think, again, America won.
Real quick, do you think the American dream is dead or alive?
I think it's still alive. I think we need to have more trust in our youth and embrace them. I think we can only relate to our experiences that we've had, right? So it's like in the Marine Corps, when I was young, the older Marines always looked at us like weaker. Oh, you guys aren't going through what we went through, right? The Vietnam Marines, like, you guys suck. Like, no, but we were so much more advanced than you were, right? If you look at some of the concepts of technology, right, like Vietnam War, the M16 rifle, fully automatic, means you got to carry more bullets. Now our M16s at that time when I was in weren't fully automatic. Single fire and 3-round burst. But the reason why the government and the military did that, not just the Marine Corps, the U.S. government actually switched it because logistically you don't want to just be spraying and spraying, right? Now you train to actually hit your target with one bullet. So, and that's just advancements through our time.
That's an interesting concept I never even thought about. Yeah, that's really interesting.
This guy's got some knowledge.
You all right, I'm just going to go deep here then. You had put a note to us in an email about the history of cash flow. And talk to us about that.
Well, really, so that goes back to that book I was telling you about. What really got me interested in finance was a book called The Ascent of Money by, I believe his name is Niall Ferguson. He's an economist, but also a historian. And I think he was from Oxford and also in Harvard. But the book's a great book because it tells you really the creation of money, right? When it started, like the first coin, and it progresses up through Roman times where the banks were created, the Italians, right? Deposits, withdrawals. So it goes through that whole lifespan. But you start to understand cash flow. Like, if you don't know cash flow, right, then you might as well just hang it up and not even be in business. Because it's not about only your P&L. It's not about your balance sheet. I've seen a lot of mistakes when in a lot of mergers and acquisitions. It's smaller level companies. They're selling their business, okay? The buyer is like, oh, let me see your P&L, let me see your balance sheet, let me get your financials, let me look at your bank accounts, right? So I can make a decision to buy this business. One statement that they always forget to ask at that level, right? I mean, the higher you get, the more consultants you have, the more experience you get. But selling $1 million business, $2 million business, I mean, these things still happen. They don't ask for the statement of cash flow. Statement of cash flow identifies whether you're a nonprofit or a profit business on how you make cash, how you're moving it. I can show, like, hey, I'm making all this money, but really I'm funding it back here personally, right? If you don't, and there's 3 ways every business makes money. And I'm not saying you're profitable. I'm saying making money, right?
Yeah.
You have in your statement of cash flow, you have income from operations. Very first thing. That's what everybody understands, right? The reason why you exist and you make money is because of your operations.
Yep.
Then you have investment activities. And then you have finance activities. Those 3 things are the only way, whether you're for-profit or nonprofit, how you move money in your organization. So really understanding that and how it applies to whatever business you're at, doesn't matter what type of business you are. And I keep referring to even if you're nonprofit, because the money moves the exact same way.
Yeah, money's always moving, man. And I don't think people realize that. So if a janitorial company's listening to this at, let's say, the smaller size, 5 million and under, and they're like, okay, I know I'm making money. I like this cash flow talk. What should they be looking at?
Yeah, like right now, if they're listening, what should they go and tell their bookkeeper or their CFO to pull up to see if they
husband or wife,
if they think they're making money? There's a difference, right? And so how can they see if they're really making money?
Yeah, so if they're $5 million, right, and their P&L showing net income, right, like that's your bottom line. So they're more likely making money, but that's just one function, right? Maybe level up and start thinking of financing activities. What could I do, right? Maybe buy some money market accounts to let that money generate interest, right? Or some investment activities, right? Like maybe I sell off some equipment that I don't need no more, right? Those are all movements of money. That's not operational. So if you're a janitorial company, you're not in the business of selling equipment. But that equipment is a line item in that statement of cash flow. So maybe work your deals, right? Invest a little bit in those activities to flip that equipment out and rotate new ones. So there's so many.
Give us one example, because I know you explained it to me before, and every time you explain it to me, I'm like, what? And I know you're going to be talking about, so what are you going to be talking about at the event? Because we're kind of going into that. Let's use the next 10, 15 minutes to give them some insight into what this talk is going to be.
I don't want to, spill everything right now, right?
Of course. Just a little, little sizzle, a little sneak peek for them.
I think what's really, really important for entrepreneurs, CEOs, to start really understanding is visualizing, and I'm going to use a statement of cash flow in my, in at least in my giveaway to let people walk out of that event, right? Or even listeners now with something that they can apply.
Yeah.
And the statement of cash flow is not just a financial statement that looks boring, right? You have to be able to visualize the flow of money in and the flow of money out. And you, as the owner or CEO, can dictate which functions are going to generate you more money. So in order to do that, you have to be able to visualize and understand that statement. So I'm going to try and give some good pointers, right? Because there's things you can apply, right? When you hear negative cash flow, what do you think?
No money.
Oh, see, so it's not. So
that's crazy. See,
there's a formula that I'll discuss there that you really, guess who, again, I don't want to give up too much information, but guess who perfected that? Negative cash flow, right? Amazon.
Okay.
Right? So they're technically making deals, right? You're buying. Do they manufacture anything on it? Do they produce it? So they're collecting your cash, right? So they're bringing it in, and there's a formula that exists that identifies you want to hit negative cash flow in that concept. Not that you're losing money, right? It's your inventory. What's their inventory? They had a model that existed, right? They would warehouse stuff so they can get it to you faster, but they got away from that because that costs money. So I'll give some of those pointers on how you guys can apply or the industry can take advantage of things like that. But guess where that's derived from? The statement of cash flow.
And so you sit there and, like you just mentioned, Amazon, you study, again, some advice would be go and study how these bigger companies do it, because obviously they're doing something right that is generating exactly what they need. So do you sit and study these locations and these companies, or where'd you?
Yeah, I guess we can say study, but it's really the curiosity, right? And the curiosity drives, because if you're not curious about it, you're just going to set it aside. So then you understand that, and then I have some theory that I've learned through school that, oh, that's why we learned that. Oh, that's why this applies. Let's test it. Let's test it and see if it actually works. And yeah, lo and behold, it works.
So we started this conversation off talking about like strategy and planning and all of that. And when my mind goes to just like big company and vision strategy, like I had mentioned, but now that we're talking finances and cash flow and all of that, I'm assuming that those two worlds shouldn't just blend together. It's a necessity that financial plans blend together. I'm just curious to your thoughts. If someone's listening here and they're like, okay, we're making money. I get it. I need a plan. Talk to someone about maybe just like from a financial overview, what they should be doing or some first steps that they could take to strategically enhance their financial situation, or at least get clear numbers on what's going on.
Yeah. So if we use the term making money really loosely, right? So it depends on that person, that company, the CEO, or the stockholders, right? What's their vision? What's their vision? Because if you're making money, then that's basically capital that you can use to drive you to your vision. I'm going to pause there real quick because so the way I vision money, I don't look at money like, this is something I need to live, survive. In a business, if you really look at it, to me, $1 is like quantifying 1 unit of trust. If that's what it translates to, right? So I just mentioned NVIDIA, $3 trillion. The way I look at that is 3 trillion units of trust. That's how much trust society has in that company. If you can conceptualize that, right, it makes everything else, makes your decisions much easier. It makes your decisions to pull the personal feeling away from money and then start thinking about those three, your operating activities, financing activities, investment activities. How can I gain more trust? Because that's the value you're giving to society, whether you're for-profit or non-profit. Right? If you think about it, it's if you're a small business, you've only been able to get this much trust from your customers, like people. But as you scale, right, you scale your guys' podcasts and you start generating more revenue, just correlated to the level of trust that people believe in you.
What's up, Profitable Cleaner listeners? Quick question for you. Are you using 5 to 7 different platforms just to manage the everyday operations of your commercial cleaning company? If so, let us help you consolidate that into one platform. Introducing you uSource. Go to uSource.com, book your free demo today, and actually get started on your trial for 60 days. No charge for 60 days, all from time and attendance to reporting, vendor management, operations, sales. It's time you stop using 5 to 7 platforms and consolidate into one. So listeners, don't forget, go to uSource.com and start your account today.
That's really interesting. That is really interesting, actually, that if you start looking at money as a symbol of trust and how that grows, That is an interesting concept.
I like it. No, and so people are gonna be able to get you to actually go in detail. Because right now, I know we're kind of keeping it closer, right? We're not laying out the cards, but you're gonna go into basically a master class. Like, what can people expect from your talk?
Yeah, I really hope that they can go back to their organizations, right, and take those concepts kind of we just touched on. But I'll geek out and I'll give some formulas that they can start using in the CEOs or the CFOs, or can kind of jot down right on the back end, and it'll kind of highlight some areas in their business that support the vision of the CEO. So the CFO should be able to forecast out and model, right, depending on what they're trying to achieve. That's his role. His role is not to say, hey, we're going to invest in this and this and this because of this. How does my CEO's vision translate to the applications of what we're currently doing, and how do we improve it to get that CEO faster to his vision?
Yeah, I know for 100%. I know for a fact most CFOs don't think like that, and most CEOs don't set up their CFOs to think that way. You know, they think that everybody. It's almost like the CEO's laying out the vision. The CFO is just like, cool, I apply the money portion of things so that we can feed your vision. What is? I know we're coming into the time here. What does strategy mean to you?
Strategy is just planning to me. Planning. Taking all your pieces, right, that you have on your board, right, whether it's chess, right, like you're just planning out your next move. Don't think short term. Don't think one move, two moves. Be 30 moves ahead. And the only way you can do that is to get a full picture of where you're trying to go. You know, if you have nowhere to go, then you really don't need to apply strategy. Just live day by day. But if you have a vision, whether it's personal or business-wise, then you formulate your strategy to get you to that vision much faster, or that goal, whatever you're trying to achieve. That's how I look at strategy.
And on a personal standpoint, how planned out are you for your life? Like, how far out are you? Are you in 2030? Are you in 2052? I don't even know. I don't even know how many years that is. How far out do you say you're technically planned out to? Right?
On my personal side,
yeah,
maybe 6 months, because I'm planning for everybody else.
So you have a plan for your family, though?
Yeah, we do. My wife and I been really, really tight, right? So ever since we got married very young, and everything we've done together. Like, so we plan together too, as a couple. But yeah, it's like they say, right? The person that has the guy that makes shoes, the cobbler, always has the worst shoes, right? Because he's making everybody's shoes.
And on average for a business, what recommendation? Like, let's say let me say I'm gonna $10 million a year. What would be a good time frame that they should be like? Okay, you should be maybe a year ahead, maybe 2 years ahead at a minimum. You should be planning 5 years ahead. What recommendation?
Yeah, I would just, if you're at 10 million and you don't have 5 years already down, because it's a rolling 5 years, right? It's not just 5 years and, we're done. I'm out of here 5 years. No, every year, because time changes, right? Your plan has to be fluid. I think we've done some exercises, right, where we have the plan, but it's progressing with time.
5 years. So if you don't have a 5-year plan, go to Cleaning Profits. Now, if you want to learn more of the strategic cash flow, right? Come out to the event. I wish that this podcast could do justice to what you're about to present and introduce. I know we had a great time talking about like warrior mindset, cash flow, like the history of cash flow, mimicking other companies. But I sat down in your office once for like 5 minutes, and you're like, you want to see what I'm going to talk about? And I'm like, yeah. And I just sat there. He just went on the board, and he just started explaining it to me, and I was like, what? Like, what? I didn't even know that was legal type of thing. No, and it is legal. He didn't show me. It's crazy. I'm just saying, like, wow, I've never thought of money that way. And most people only see money and success of money, financial success, based on top-line revenue and net profit. Mm-hmm. They have no clue of anything else in between, including myself. So I know I'm going to be taking notes. Let me ask you, any final advice, anything you want to give the people, anything in general you want to share?
Yeah, I guess your listeners, always do the right thing, right? Give it your best. Never give up. Embrace that warrior mindset, because you'll learn from it, whether it's a failure or you succeed, right? You're going to learn something from it. So just never give up. I mean, we've all been through hard times, and if you're here, then you obviously succeeded. So never give up.
Awesome, man.
Well, any final questions?
No, I just want to thank you, man. Thank you for your service, first and foremost.
Yes, sir.
And I can't wait to hear your session at Cleaning Profits. So like Angel said, Cleaning Profits 3.0, if you guys really want to dive deep and learn from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Rafael.
We're actually putting him right before our closer, like the second day. Like he's going to be above all the industry panel, all the industry insights right at the end, cherry on the top, Rafael, because I know you're going to bring everything together and show people how to make money. One final question. Anybody that's working with their wife, what advice would you give them? Because I know you've been working with your wife for a long time, and y'all are killers, man. Like, you guys, anything you guys touch turns into gold. Shout out Lorena. Yeah, shout out to Lorena. Woo! Which we've had on the podcast. Check out her episode as well.
Yeah, it's so the relationship, right? You have a business relationship, and then you also have your marriage relationship, right? The toughest challenges, and people always say, "Oh, I couldn't work with my wife," or I couldn't. The majority of people say that. But so how tight is your relationship, right? Because whether it's in business or in my household, it doesn't change for me, right? So we still make decisions, and we all, right? We have our downs, and then you argue, but you try to apply like, hey, this is the way to do it, and she's like, no, I'm going to do it this way, but you come to a happy medium because a relationship exists, right? You give and take. It isn't my way the only way, and if you can embrace that, and you in your marriage and in your business, if you're working together, it makes life much easier, and then you're going to achieve what you're trying to get to because there's a give and take relationship.
Boom.
Well said. You're actually the second person to say, like within the last few days, that a lot of people say they can't work with their significant other, and I think that, yeah, how tight is your relationship? So taken from someone who has that experience, man, I think that's well said.
I love it, man. Thanks for being here in the Profitable Cleaner podcast, and make sure you get your tickets. Ask us for a code, do whatever you got to do, but get yourself there so you can learn how to make money for real. Let's see y'all on the next one.
Thank you, guys.
And that way he don't play like no way. So I gotta get out of